Hello, and welcome to episode 121 of Prose. This week, die all your life, and think on the snows of winter. Well, here it is, the final full episode of 2020. I hope this holiday season and final stretch to the new year are treating you well. I would like to encourage you all to go follow the show on social media. As always, it can be found at Prose Podcast. If you are enjoying the show, please click that 5-star review button wherever you're listening. For easiest access, do subscribe on that same app where you're listening or on your computer, anywhere you so choose. Check out the Prose Patreon page at patreon.com/Prose Podcast and consider supporting the show there. Heaps of gratitude and a little swag will come your way with that deal. And all of this can be found at our central home at prosepodcast.com. Thanks for listening. Let's get to the tale, shall we? This week, we have Palimpsest the Damned and Snowfall. Enjoy. Palimpsest the Damned, an original short story by Jared I. McGee. I was 35 the first time I committed suicide. Well, that's not entirely true. I learned from a very early age that it is necessary to create and destroy oneself rather often. As the grandson of a military man whose parents had died in an accident long before my memories were forming in any meaningful manner, our Kintsugi family moved almost annually. Every now and again, we might stay somewhere for 2 or 3 years. But I don't know that I stayed anywhere for beyond the 3-year mark until I was 30. Though broken, we were lacquered together with all things golden. Love, togetherness, support, often laughter. But all that moving made for few real connections in my life beyond my grandfather and grandmother. As beautiful as our kintsukuroi is, the pottery is still, in the end, broken. The cracks can still be seen. They are still present. Even if they are gilded, these breakages are fault lines, scars on what once was whole. My earliest memories, then, are of that moving. The juxtaposition of love in my home and a barren land of loneliness outside those walls. School saw me becoming a chameleon from preschool onward. Here, I was an outgoing leader among the other little children, playing games of dinosaurs come to life, leading charges into battle against imaginary foes, determining what was in regards to dress, cartoons, and whatever else it is younglings find interesting. There, I was a quiet introvert. Hiding in my own head, I was a follower, often pushed around in the locker room, mocked for my threadbare clothes and my lack of knowing what the cool kids were listening to, wearing, thinking. Here, I was an athlete, a young Adonis, a god among young men, lauded on Friday nights and worshipped throughout the week. There, I was a sensitive artistic boy, playing the piano, singing and writing poetry day in and day out. Everywhere, I was a stranger. A friend to everyone and a friend to no one. A laughingstock. A thug. A warm heart. A steely bully. I was everyone and no one. From 3 to 30, I birthed and killed at least 30 men, never wearing their skins for more than a year at a time. Even when we stayed in a town for longer than a year, I made sure not to keep the same me alive beyond 400 days. To wear a skin too long was to threaten oneself with getting comfortable, with growing slow and wary and getting stuck. When the skin would begin to cling and to feel right, I would scourge myself and strip it away. After all those lessons, I thought I had escaped the possibility of being trapped in any given self. Then, as in so many other cliched stories, I met a girl. With her, I allowed myself to be scoured. I took off the false clothes and got closer to my real me, to my real skin and organs and viscera. For 5 years, I kept the costumes in the closet and raised the walls and defenses that had been so painstakingly built. And, as in so many other cliched stories, she broke my heart. I can't point fingers at her, as I am just as much to blame for our relationship's failure. Moreover, seeing how easily she killed the self with whom I'd sought to build a life made me actually respect her more, love her more. She was just as talented as me. Once that loving woman was dead, she became some vile other, so focused on all the superficial in this world that she was utterly unrecognizable to me and to all those friends she had made during our half-decade together. I tried to die slowly. Really die this time. I stopped eating, I stopped drinking. I was emptying myself out into the husk my spirit demanded I was to be in the wake of her slashing and burning. But the body is far harder to kill than the spirit, as it turned out. My passive attempts on my own life simply wouldn't do. They were ineffective. So I researched methods of suicide. I wanted to die cleanly. I did not want to produce some ignoble painting to be sloshed on some poor EMT or medical examiner's mind. Though in reality, I would probably be just another nobody they have to clean off the floor. Those men and women see this sort of thing all the time. My own end would have no grand effect on them. Eventually, I made my plan. It was intricate, but those intricacies are of no consequence. It did not work. I awoke with a bloody living room floor, a dizzy head, and a craving for macaroni and cheese. Not just any macaroni and cheese. My grandmother's beloved twice-baked concoction that provided untold numbers of family and church members with joy and full bellies over all the years she had made it. So, I cleaned the blood, a difficult task if I'm being honest, and made some macaroni and cheese, an equally difficult task for me. I am a terrible cook. Then I chose my backup plan to enact a week later. Again, I woke up. This time, there was much less of a mess, but I had a pain in my neck and shoulders that would go on to linger for roughly a month. After this attempt, I was dying for a slice of pizza. Extra cheese, extra sauce, extra mushrooms. I only tried to die one more time. This time I drove my car into a tree. When I woke up in the hospital, the doctors told me that I was the luckiest man they had ever met. I had only sustained minor injuries and had healed faster than anyone they had ever encountered. When they released me, I went straight to the nearest cafe and grabbed a double espresso latte and a pain au chocolat. I suppose after this third attempt I should have been elated. If supposition and framing were correct, I was something akin to a superhero. I couldn't die. The problem was that I wanted to die. I wanted to end the existence I was burdened with. And here I was, still stumbling down the sidewalks, misery and self-loathing thick on my tongue and spewing forth with every other breath. If I am remembering correctly, it took me about a year beyond that last attempt to realize how this unyielding life, this damnation to continue, was something rather like what I had already experienced in my piecemeal childhood and adolescence. How many times had I wished that I really could truly kill some version of myself, stepping out of his shadow, thereby resettling life for myself. Resetting life for myself. New people in my life without old ones asking questions. New places without the old encroaching. To me, that was freedom. Falling in a forest with no one around to hear whether or not there was a sound. My fourth suicide was the first successful one. I crashed my car again. This time I aimed for a river. Whoever found the vehicle would inevitably find blood in buckets, tatters of flesh and hair, but no body. They would presume that it had been swept away down with the river's current, eventually emptying out into the sea. I left that town where I had been gutted. The real me had been gutted. I had always had an idea that it might be neat to live abroad, overseas where I might be exotic. I had scores of characters and selves that I was longing to try out. Personalities that might garner fame and fortune in London. Selves who could upend the art scene in Vienna. Me's that might live and love quietly in Moscow. With each death, I could scrape off everything that had been written on my life's manuscript. And though there might be some shadow of the writing that had been there before remaining as a ghost in the background, I could rewrite my story time and time again. And I could always scrape that new ink off and start all over again. I might be damned to walk the world. I might have lost my kintsugi when my grandparents had passed and been unable to mend it further, mend my own life. I might have already produced the best stories for myself that I had in me. But I would endure. I would be forced to. I was 38 the first time I'd lived in 8 years. Walking down Broadwick Street in Soho. I thought on the past, but with an eye to the future. I would live and die 100 more times. Part of me cringed at my enduring, but a bigger part of me was smiling and cackling maniacally that maybe one day, someday long, long in the future, someone might put it all together, and I might be a hero, a villain, a folk tale, a god, a monster. Palimpsest the damned, the skin shedder, he who is all, he who is none. The street was coming to an end rather quickly. I stopped at an ice cream shop and got a double scoop of Rocky Road. This might be painful, but I was determined to have a little fun amid the torture. Thank you for listening to Palimpsest the Damned, an original short story by me, Jared I. McGee. Please stick around for our second short story this week, a tale focused on the winter months and the snow that so often falls. Let's move on to that tale. Snow Falling, an original short story by Jared I. McGee. Winter is a time of renewal. Most people say that of spring. Some know better. Rebirth cannot occur without a wiping away of the old. Death breeds life. Life does not breed life. In the deeps of the ancient Massachusetts forests, the snow falls with naught but the woodland creatures to bear witness to this resetting of the world. There is a barely audible hiss of snow on long fallen autumn leaves, like an angry asp warning but ready to strike. Is that a tinge of danger then? Foreboding. But the snakes are long gone. They have hidden. Their sense of danger has pushed them to burrow deep in the dark places of the world, to avoid being part of this great reset, to avoid laying their bodies down under the snows to act as eventual fertilizer for the great rebirth come May. The dangers of the snow are quieter. They are more subtle. Most write tales of solace and deliberate thought when they think of the hibernal whispers. Most write tales of solace and deliberate thought when they think on the hibernal whispers. Those winds hinting at magic in the darkened corners of the forests of the frozen north. But the older tales make mention of otherworldly beings. They speak more full-throatedly of the darkness and danger that comes alongside the falling snows and plummeting temperatures. Giants and fae and races of malevolent tricksters making merry in the cold months by singing sylvan explorers to sleep, lulling them into a false sense of security and warmth there in the cold places of the world. That is what the olden tales tell. They would sing, "Lie down, young man, the warmth will come to you. We will give you a lullaby to put your heart at ease." But those lullabies do not tell the flagging wanderer that their heart will be at ease, only because it will slow and then stop. The words and worlds of winter go silent for most of the year. And even when they are shouting, when the gales and blizzards come in the dark months, they do not tell all they know. They do not tell their tales, even to those ears peaked and ready to listen, even to those men and women seeking answers and less fraught realities in the snows. Here in the heart of the winter, December and January mock mere mortals. Winter in the northern reaches of the U.S. hold out sometimes until June. Certainly March and April are winter's dominion as well. There was no magic to it, but there was something preternatural, something supernatural, something that went beyond a simple drop of the temperature. In winter, men and women would lose a tether on the drives that pushed them into the warmer months. Rutting and fucking, exercise and rejuvenation. They all see a swift death in the wintertime. Sleeping and eating go from mere survival mechanisms and become obsessions. They go from the means to the end. This sleeping and eating is another form of renewal. A hibernation in Hibernia to become something else. Darkness spreads its wings and breathes out that hiss of snow across those long fallen autumn leaves. And we pray, in the words of Edward Hayes,
"The dark shadow of space leans over us. We are mindful that the darkness of greed, exploitation, and hatred also lengthens its shadow over our small planet Earth. As our ancestors feared death and evil and all the dark powers of winter, we fear that the darkness of war, discrimination, and selfishness may doom us and our planet to an eternal winter. May we find hope in the lights we have kindled on this sacred night, hope in one another and all who form the web work of peace and justice that spans the world. In the heart of every person on this earth burns the spark of luminous goodness. In no heart is there total darkness. May we who have celebrated this winter solstice by our lives and service, by our prayers and love, call forth from one another the light and the love that is hidden in every heart. Amen."
in the deeps of the ancient Massachusetts forests, the snow falls with naught but the woodland creatures to bear witness to this resetting of the world. Winter is a time of renewal. Most people say that is spring. Some know better. Rebirth cannot occur without a wiping away of the old. Death breeds life. Life does not breed life. Thank you for listening to Snow Falling, an original short story by me, Jared I. McGee, with just a little bit of help from a wonderful poet of the past, Edward Hayes. That does it for Prose this week. All sounds you heard under both stories come from YouTube's audio library. They are being used under CC 01.0 public domain dedication licenses. Well, this is our last show. Well, our last regular show of 2020. Please do keep your eyes out for my traditional New Year's Eve special. And certainly, whichever of those you may be celebrating. As we traipse ever forward to 2021, I do hope that you'll love those around you, tell them earnestly that you do, and embrace this life as it is stranger than fiction. Thank you so much for listening. I look forward to our next regular episode together. That's January 10th, here in 2 weeks' time. January 10th, 2021. See you then.